Okay, Summerbrooks, Persuasive Speech 2, COMM 113. All right. In 1492, Columbus sailed the ocean blue. If you grew up in the United States, you undoubtedly have heard this sentence from the time you were in elementary school all the way until high school and university, most likely. Maybe you were an elementary student sitting crisscross applesauce on your storytime carpet and your teacher was reading to you about Columbus and his discoveries out of a storybook. Maybe you were in middle school or high school and you were reading out of a textbook. But undoubtedly, you learned about Columbus and his expedition to North America. This is such a big deal that in 1934, the United States government determined Columbus Day, the day that celebrates Columbus and his expedition, to be a national holiday, where employers will give their employees a day off. That's a reason to celebrate, right? You would think so. As of recent, there have been calls to repeal Columbus Day. Today, we are going to be looking at some of those motives and why people would want to get rid of this holiday. I personally believe that Columbus Day should be repealed because his actions are things that should be condemned and not celebrated. Columbus was not the first to discover North America. And repealing Columbus Day would allow us to revise the untruthful telling of history and teach it in a more accurate way. I hope that as we go through these things today, you will see the positives of repealing Columbus Day. First, we're going to look at Columbus's actions. Now, this is something that is largely left out of history books. It might be touched on a little bit, but it never goes into detail, and sometimes for good reason. During his expedition of North America, Columbus committed atrocities to the native people. Some of these things included unethical colonization, slavery, genocide, kidnapping, the spread of disease, and rape. These are vile and disgusting things and should never be done to anyone, especially not innocent natives who don't know anything of the outside world. Now, including those things, Columbus also gathered up natives and took them back to Spain to show to his peers to become more famous for the discoveries that he'd made in North America. These actions have caused lasting impacts for Native Americans. As many of us know, Columbus was looking for a route from Spain to East Asia through the Atlantic Ocean. He accidentally bumped into North America and thought he was in India. When he got off his boat and he saw the native tribes, he called them Indians, believing that he was in India. This name has stuck, and Native Americans are often mislabeled as Indians, creating confusion between the two cultures. This strips Native Americans of their identity and is part of the reason why colonists later on didn't really see them as American. This real reputation of Columbus is largely hidden from the world, and I believe it should be out in the open. Next, we are going to see how Columbus didn't really discover North America. Now, I believe it is a little prideful to say you discovered a land that people were already living on. The term discovered actually makes us think that Columbus was the first person to step foot onto North America, when in fact people had been living here since the beginning. This holiday also makes us believe that he was the very first to come to North America, when in fact that is not true. About 500 years before Columbus ever stepped foot on North America, Leif Erikson, another explorer, came to North America. He is another European explorer that is largely left out of history and overshadowed by Christopher Columbus. If we really feel we need to celebrate a European explorer for the discovery of North America, Leif Erikson would be the guy to celebrate. Next, repealing Columbus Day would allow us to revise history and teach it in a more truthful manner. This would also allow us to have conversations about indigenous culture and those people. I know when I personally learned of Columbus's true actions and what he had done to native tribes, I felt like I had been betrayed, like I had been taught something that was incorrect and was a lie. I also felt like, as a Native American, I was betraying those who are akin to me, even though distantly. Although his actions are gruesome, and I do not wish them on anyone, I believe that they should be included in textbooks in an age-appropriate way. Now, that doesn't mean we detail the genocide and the kidnapping and rape to our elementary students, but we mentioned that Columbus was not the perfect superhero that he's often portrayed to be. Not celebrating Columbus Day would allow us to learn more about Native culture. It would allow people to explore what the lives of the Native Americans were like before Europeans ever stepped foot on North America. It would also let us explore the background of these people who were so brutally pushed out of their homeland, both through Columbus and later on the American government. And including Columbus's true story in text would allow students to engage in a more diverse way of thinking about Columbus and Native American tribes. Now, I want to get rid of Columbus Day. I hope you see that that is true. But I don't think the solution is to just get rid of it. I think the real solution is to replace Columbus Day with something similar to Indigenous Peoples Day. According to the Pew Research Center, Alaska, Iowa, Michigan, and Oregon are all states that have disbanded Columbus Day and now celebrate Indigenous Peoples Day. Some cities, including Seattle, San Antonio, and Boston, have followed suit. Now, there are also other states that do not have an official holiday on the second Monday of October, but they declare it to be Indigenous Peoples Day, or they celebrate the Native tribes rather than Columbus. I believe that celebrating Indigenous Peoples Day would allow people from different backgrounds to feel more connected. The real issue here with Columbus Day is it causes disunity and frankly untruth to be spread. So by celebrating something like Indigenous Peoples Day, we would be unifying and learning more about each other. This would allow us to better understand tribal culture, lifestyle, traditions, and ancestry. Finally, I want to wrap up by saying Columbus Day is not the perfect superhero that he is portrayed to be by many of our textbooks. His actions, as we have seen today, are things that should be condemned and not celebrated. He really wasn't the first man to discover North America, and putting an end to Columbus Day would allow us to revise history and teach it in a more truthful way. I'm just going to list finally some benefits of getting rid of Columbus Day that we've gone over through this speech. It would allow people groups to learn more about Native culture through Indigenous Peoples Day. It would allow Natives to learn more about their own culture and people outside of the Native culture to learn about it. Really, if we get to the base of this is about teaching truthful history and unifying people groups. Thank you.